Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Energy Fuels. It is time for another update, and it's been a while since we have last covered this stock, but it hasn't been doing too much. And that changes today because I am bringing you a trade setup on this chart. And not only that, but if it follows through, we could be looking either at a quite substantial breakout or potentially a larger trade setup, a larger confirmation that a more substantial bottom would be in place, and we would be looking to continue to extend to higher prices. Now, if you want the full story for this chart, you can check out the previous videos, but for quick context, we have been tracking this as an initial 1-2 setup, and we've been looking for a follow-up 5-wave structure, a pattern that actually has followed through. We have a potential 5-wave movement to the upside in place, but I could only be tracking this scenario within the idea of a diagonal structure, and this hasn't necessarily been a preference for me. I would have actually strongly preferred to track this structure as an impulse, and I believe we can continue to do so, at least within this white scenario, as we have depicted here, which would build a larger ending diagonal, or potentially within a new interpretation I am tracking for this structure, where it could build even an impulse. Now, we don't need to differentiate too much between this yellow interpretation and the white scenario, whether this is a wave C that extends to higher prices, whether this is a wave 3. It's not too relevant at this point, and I will actually even remove this yellow scenario for the moment, with the mention that technically it can still work out. Now, why are we not satisfied with what we have as a wave 5 in? Well, it's not just because we would have to track a diagonal pattern, but also because we haven't formed a satisfactory extension to new highs within this movement. This could have been very easily just an overshoot. It is a 3-wave pattern, and we could actually consider the wave 4 to have never bottomed. And how could that be? The wave 4 would have to be an awful match for this as a wave 2, especially if we get a reset at this point, right? Well, yes, especially if we get a reset, but not if. This wave 4 would actually be building a triangle. Now, in that case, I would be satisfied with what we have done within a wave A of a triangle as a perfect match for a wave 2. And I could be looking for this to be building something like an A, B, C, D, E. This could allow, in fact, the wave 4 bottom to already be in, and the wave 5 to start in a quite strong breakout. So I would be able, in this interpretation, to even track a couple of trend lines for this scenario, where we touch the wave B top, the wave D top, and we are looking to have a touch point within the wave A and the wave C bottom. This would be a contracting triangle, so as we are looking to form lower highs and higher lows, we are extending closer and closer towards the apex. As we approach this area and keep contracting within its region, we can start very easily to expect even an explosive breakout. Now, that could be in either direction, but I would primarily focus on the upside. I would have clear levels where this structure would likely fail. Now, of course, being careful of an overthrow and underthrow, but generally, I am leaning towards the belief that we haven't had a satisfactory wave 5, that I would actually like to see extensions to higher prices. So, we can now resume to what we have been tracking previously, because at this point, we could still get a reset within the wave D. That would be actually no problem. We could extend lower within the wave E, so we have to watch this from a smaller time frame to get additional information. Now, even in the white and yellow scenarios, we have been previously tracking this 3-wave correction. They could still work out, it could be in place, we were actually looking even for a possible extension. Now, that didn't happen, we have broken above the last level of resistance, we have retraced basically 100%, and it managed to break through eventually, it pushed higher. So, I'm not too focused on these interpretations at the moment, but rather what is happening internally within this structure, where we see some quite interesting developments. At this point, I cannot rule out the possibility of this being this actual wave B in blue. I would very easily be able to consider this as an A, B, C structure, has formed quite clearly a 5-wave move to the upside. I am quite pleased with that idea, and since it is within a diagonal pattern, I would not be able to track a 5-wave pattern and still consider this to be an actual wave 3. Now, the thing is, there are options that would actually allow this to be a wave 3. It could be a 1, 2, and then this as a wave 3 could work out as an A, B, C structure. That would be no problem. I could then track a wave 4 area of support for a diagonal pattern to take me to higher prices. I would have to allow a retracement as low as the 61.8% retracement, in which case we have pushed perfectly. And we would be looking to form one more high within this structure, which would build an initial 5-wave move to the upside. So, what's wrong here? Actually, not much. It is a valid count, and if we follow through building this as an A, B, C structure within the wave 5, we would have a leading diagonal in place, we would have an opportunity at play, and we would be looking for a larger 1-2 setup. Now, this idea of a wave D might be faltering under those conditions. We could still consider it, especially since there would be practically no difference to us whether this is a 1-2 setup or whether this is an actual wave D still, and we get a wave E and then get a breakout. Doesn't matter practically. So it's a win-win situation. And not only that, but internally, I can identify in this structure an initial 5-wave move to the upside within the idea of a leading diagonal. This is an opportunity from a smaller time frame, and this is the trade setup that I was talking about in the beginning of this video, where assuming we have a top within this as an internal wave 1, I can look for support at the levels between $20.9 down to $20, and against the last level of support, the 78.6% retracement, I can look for continuation to higher prices, where in the white scenario we would be looking at an A, B, C pattern, and in the blue scenario, where technically this wave E could have bottomed, this would be a 1-2 setup. Now, keep in mind, it's not a perfect match for this as a wave 4, this is a wave 2. It's within a very small time frame. It does need to be considered. At this point, there isn't even a sign of a top being in place, right? This could very easily extend higher, in which case it might form a different structure instead. But if it still manages to keep this appearance of a 5-wave pattern, we would only need to adjust the support levels for a larger A, B, C pattern, or as I was saying in the blue interpretation, a potential 1-2 setup that could allow a quite explosive breakout to take place. So looking for a trade setup within this region allows me to capture the potential of, sure, simply a wave C, potentially a quite strong breakout, where this would have been the wave 4 bottom that could take us quite rapidly to new highs, substantially higher levels, right? And there is one more scenario where I would then be able to track this as a double 1-2-1-2 setup, where this wouldn't be a wave C instead, but a 1-2 setup, and then this as a wave 3 would be once again seeing a quite substantial breakout. So for me, I'm not too interested in the actual white levels of support you see here on the screen. I'm interested in the internal structure. And depending on how it follows through within this development to the upside, I would be looking for one outcome or the other. I can define my risk from this internal area of support, very clearly defined. I know that below the 78.6% retracement, I would likely get a reset. I would then have no confirmation other than the potential wave E in the blue interpretation, which is still interesting to me, but would also require reassessment of the structure. Then, if it only manages to build a wave C to the upside from these levels, I wouldn't expect to get a loss on it, but I would have afterwards a potential 5-wave move to the upside. I would then have afterwards a potential larger 1-2 setup, which would allow once again opportunity to capture value for a breakout. And for now, this is everything I'm watching on this chart. It is stupid simple to track this one area of support. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership, and I wish you a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.